change the shape of things to come.
Alright, hello there, thrill seekers. That was a little bit of a song called Shape of Things to Come by Max Frost and the Troopers. It's from a movie, I don't remember what the movie is that it's from, but I like that song. And there's another Shape of Things to Come by the Yardbirds from the same era, so maybe I'll cover that, but I'll just confuse people if I do that one. Anyhow, I said yesterday that I would talk about kind of my impressions of the retreat that I just attended at Hokkyoji Zen Temple. So if you want to if you want to know what happened there, I just did a whole video on it yesterday, and if you're looking in the far future or something, the video is called My Retreat at Hokkyoji, and you can look it up and see what happened. But this morning I had to take Ziggy to the vet, and he's having a little itchy stuff on his belly that's just been going on forever. So we thought we'd take him to a vet. And it took way longer than I thought, so I didn't have a lot of time to plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of improvise a little bit, because I promised this video and I don't want to break my promises. So what happens on a Zen retreat, right? What happens on a Zen retreat stays on a Zen retreat. Well, not always. But anyway, you know, what happens to the person who does it? Because I already told you what we did. It was basically, we got up early in the morning and sat zazen a lot of the day and had a sort of a very structured time for the time that we were there. And that's kind of the thing you do. That would probably be the main thing all Zen retreats would have in common, is lots of zazen and a very structured day. Otherwise, even around the zazen, you're kind of like every moment of the day is planned out. Well, not planned out, but you have a place to be every moment of the day. Even when you have free time, it's kind of, you don't have enough free time to go anywhere. So it's, you know, even your free time is kind of restricted. So that's how it goes. I think when I first went to a Zen retreat, I expected something to happen. It took me a long time to finally just, you know, take the plunge and go to my first Zen retreat. I had been practicing zazen for at least 10 years before I ever went to any kind of a retreat. Tim McCarthy, my first teacher, used to host occasional day-long retreats. You know, I don't know if you can call it a retreat when it's just a day and it's all, you know, you don't spend the night anywhere or anything like that. So those would start in, not real early in the morning, I don't remember, maybe 8 or 9 in the morning, and then go on till the mid-afternoon, and basically you'd just be sitting zazen all day. So I had done a number of those with Tim, and I'd done a number of similar things with Nishijima Roshi when I got to Japan. So after a while I decided I would, he would announce these retreats, and I decided I'll go on one. First one I went on was, I goofed up. I didn't really understand what was going on. Nishijima Roshi gave several retreats every year, and one of them was in English for the sort of foreigners who came and listened to him speak. And then the rest were either retreats for members of his company or retreats for the Japanese group, which was mainly kind of old Japanese dudes. So I signed up for a retreat that I thought was the English language retreat, but it turns out it was one of the company retreats for the new members of his company. So he didn't own the company he worked for, which was Ida Soap Company, something like that. And so that was weird, and I wrote about that in Hardcore Zen because I kept a diary at the time and I had some notes. I went into that going, I don't know, this is 3 days, you know, so it's short by Zen retreat standards, but Nishijima Roshi believed in keeping Zen retreats short, because he was very much a believer that zazen should be integrated into your regular life. And he thought if you do a long retreat of, 7 days or 10 days or something like that, that just gets you too far out of your normal life, and that isn't what he wanted. But 3 days in an actual Zen temple in Japan was longer than I'd ever done anything at a Zen temple in Japan. So it was pretty difficult. It was pretty kind of a shock to the system, getting up at 4:30 in the morning and everything and doing Zazen all day. But, I made it through, and then I went to at least one retreat every year after that, sometimes more than one retreat every year. And after a while, I kind of knew what to expect from Nishijima Roshi's retreat. One of the things that comes up is Zazen is difficult. And doing Zazen over and over and over and over and over again is more difficult. So I'll give you a little hint that I thought of while I was sitting. So here's the deal. When you are sitting Zazen, one of the things, and this doesn't just go for retreats, this can go for just a normal sitting. One of the things that will be happening is you'll be taking your position, your Zazen position, and just sitting there and going, oh my God, I can't stand this. I don't know how I'm going to make it through until the bell rings. Oh my God. And you can fill your mind up with that. And what often happens is that the mind kind of, first you believe that what your brain is telling you is true, which is probably your first mistake. It's a mistake I made a lot. And then you kind of build on it and build on it and build on it and build on it until it goes kind of crazy. Sort of like what happens if you put a guitar through an echo effect and then have the repeats on infinitely. It'll just go wah, 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 go crazy. But what you can do instead, which, you kind of figure out, or at least I figured out through experience, is you go, okay, there's that thought, I can't stand this anymore. Put it aside. Now, it might just come up again, then you just put it aside again. And then it comes up again, and you go, put it aside again. So instead of going and building up, what happens is like when you put the guitar through the echo effect and you don't have the echoes on infinite repeat. It just kind of fades off. So that's the technique, if you can call it a technique. And the reason I tell you this is because this pretty much happens to me at least once every retreat that I sit. And it happened at Hokyoji again. There was a point, I don't know, a second or third day that I was sitting there and it was in the morning and I knew I had a whole, a bunch of more Zazen to get through during the day. And that thought came up, that thought of like, I can't stand it. Now I've been doing Zazen for 40 years, every day. So I should maybe not have that thought, but, I did. And I just put it aside. So there's that. Nothing spectacular happened in this Zazen retreat that's worth reporting, but one of these kind of ordinary things that I've come to sort of expect, because it always happened, which is I started to have really weird dreams and a couple of lucid dreams. So that's an interesting effect of doing lots of Zazen. In fact, Dokai, the guy who runs the place, Hokyoji, mentioned it during one of the talks we had during the retreat about the weird dreams. And one of my dreams was kind of interesting, and I'm going to tell you the little part that was interesting, which is I dreamed that I was watching the new Godzilla movie. Actually, there is a new Godzilla movie that's supposed to come out at the end of March, which I'm sure I'm going to go see. But in this dream, it was a totally different new Godzilla movie. It was made in Japan with all the classic old monsters, Mechagodzilla and Ghidorah and Rodan and Mothra and everybody else was in it. And there was this one scene that I saw in my dream that if you're a director of monster movies, you should use this scene because I think it's a kind of neat idea, which is the monsters were attacking the city, and somewhere in the city was kind of an exhibit of miniature buildings, which I'd gone to a couple of these things in Japan. They're kind of a popular thing in Japan, maybe because of the tradition of monster movies over there, where they use those miniature buildings. So in the city, there's an exhibit of miniature buildings. So what you see in the film is you see some buildings, and you see some feet start stomping through the buildings, and you realize, oh my God, those are human feet. What the hell? And then the camera pans up, and we see that it's a bunch of people running away from the monsters through a bunch of little miniature buildings. And then we pan up further, and then we see the actual monsters coming through the actual, of course, they're not really actual, the actual buildings. And I thought, oh, wow, that's a cool scene. You pan up and see the monsters. So I had a dream like that. I had another dream where I met Norm Macdonald, and I was having a conversation with him that kept going on. It was like, when you meet a celebrity, if you've ever met a celebrity, my kind of thing whenever I've met famous people is to kind of keep my things short, because I don't want to waste their time, because they're famous people and they got a lot of people to see and whatever. So, but Norm just kept talking. I'd be like, okay, well, I got to go. And Norm was like, hey, you know that story about that? And he'd just keep talking. So that was kind of interesting. So having weird dreams is kind of par for the course of a Zen retreat. Having any sort of big mystical experiences, for me at least, is not a common facet of a Zen retreat. The experiences, the kind of interesting experiences that sometimes I've talked about on this channel and written about, usually seem to come after a retreat, when something else is going on. During the retreat, it hardly ever happens. But, kind of interestingly enough, the only place I can remember specifically, well, one of two places I can specifically remember a kind of so-called mystical experience happening during a retreat and during Zazen was at Hokkyoji, when I'd gone there before 14 or 10 years ago, whenever it was. I had an experience that was quite interesting during Zazen, and maybe I'll tell you about it one of these days. But this time, nothing. I just sit in Zazen. And if you go into a retreat sort of expecting something to happen, you're probably going to be disappointed. Probably what the retreat will be like is kind of boring. But boring in a nice way. It's not boring in the kind of sense of, how solitary confinement or something like that would be boring in a kind of soul-crushing way. It's boring, but you're not putting any new information. If you're doing the retreat right, you're not putting any new information into your mind. For example, if I'm at home, my wife likes to watch a bunch of TV shows that we watch together on, we've been watching Felicity, the old early 2000s show about a college girl. We've been watching that, and we've been watching, she likes to watch the serial killer documentaries, but we're not watching any of those right now. But one thing we do bond on is documentaries about religious cults. So every documentary, in fact, we noticed a new one had come out on, I forget which cult, but we're going to watch that. And we were watching the Rael one. If you know that, that's a real interesting cult that was about UFOs. But the point I am trying to make is, on a normal day, I'm putting all kinds of stuff in my brain. I'm looking at the phone and looking through social media. I'm watching TV shows. Maybe I'm having conversations with people. I'm exposing myself to a lot of information. If I go shopping or something, I'm going to see a lot of stuff, and there's going to be a lot of information impacting my brain. And the nice thing about a retreat is that you're cutting yourself off deliberately from as much of that as possible. I think I mentioned there, I don't know if I mentioned this, there was internet at Hokkyoji, which was surprising to me because I'd made all these plans with my wife, like how she could get a hold of me, because I assumed that there would be no internet at all, because last time I'd gone there, I think I still had a flip phone, and I couldn't get that to work, and I couldn't get anything to work. But they got internet out there now. But it only works in one of the buildings, and it's kind of spotty even when you're in that building, which is good. And I had to make rules for myself about, okay, I can email my wife, I can, I let myself look at Instagram a couple of times because I have anybody who I was following on Instagram who posted controversial or that kind of stuff, I eliminated them a long time ago. So all I get on Instagram is like cute puppy videos and ads for guitars. And then, a couple of people that I follow. So, but I was trying to limit myself even from that. So I was trying to limit myself to strictly just emailing my wife every once in a while. Or not emailing, texting her. So I think that's important to do. You gotta keep away from that stuff. I have a hard rule during Zen retreats, whether I'm the leader or just a member of it, that if there's internet there, I am not allowed to look at anything like Twitter or news, and things like that. I got to stay away from. So the effect of staying away from a lot of information will automatically do something to your brain that feels really good. Initially, I think for some people, this is disconcerting because if you're a person who's really used to putting, information, like looking at the TV all the time, looking at the internet all the time, to cut yourself off from that can be, it can be like a shock. I find it really refreshing and really nice to just not have anything like that. And during Zazen itself, it is impossible. You're not going to look at anything like that. In fact, there's a kind of a saying that one of the effects of Zazen is that while you are doing Zazen, you are forced to keep all the Buddhist precepts because it's really difficult to break any of the Buddhist precepts of ethical action when you're just sitting still all the time. I mean, you can have as many unethical thoughts as you want, but there's not really a precept against that. In any way, you want to kind of let those go. The other thing that happens in a Zen retreat is the thoughts. It kind of opens something up. And what will ordinarily happen to me on just about every retreat, and it happened again this retreat, is that you're sitting there in Zazen, or I'm sitting there in Zazen, and all of a sudden something pops up. It'll be like a memory or just some impression or just something that I'm like, I haven't thought of that in years. I can't really remember any. The only one I can remember, because it was kind of weird, was I suddenly in the middle of Zazen got obsessed with trying to remember all of the characters from the Brady Bunch. Like I could remember Marcia and Jan off the top of my head, but trying to remember, I'm like, is the list? There's a little one named Sally? And I couldn't remember the middle brother's name at all, which turns out to be Peter, but I couldn't. And then the dad's name was just kind of just going, I'm just sitting there going, what the hell was the dad's name on Brady Bunch? Like I couldn't think of it. And I ended up doing this little mnemonic trick, which I think I invented for myself, which is going through the alphabet. A, was he Adam? B, was he Bob? No, he wasn't Bob. C, was he Charlie or Carl? Going like that. And once I got to the M's, it was Mike. I'm like, oh yeah, Mike. So that was something that came up. But often it'll be something that's more difficult than that. I've had repressed memories kind of pop up, things that were not pleasant that I'd completely forgotten about, and then all of a sudden it's there during Zazen. So this is one of the reasons that it's good to have a teacher or something, because it can help to bring that stuff up to a teacher, or at least somebody you are friends with that has done Zazen before. And what they'll tell you, I can tell you right now, spoiler alert, is yeah, that happens to everybody. And the only thing you can do about it is just try to let it go. This idea of letting go thoughts, a lot of people get into a meditation practice because there's something they don't want to think about that they want to be able to drop. And meditation practice can help you learn to do that. But here's the caveat. In order to be able to do that, you have to learn to drop all your thoughts. So this is sometimes the more difficult aspect of Zazen practice in a retreat or something, is you'll start having a really pleasant thought, something really nice, and you'll want to hold on to that. But you've got to let that stuff go too. And if you have any sort of mystical experiences, any so-called enlightenment or kensho or whatever, even these sort of more minor experiences one has during Zazen sometimes, you got to let those go too. So you got to just, if you want to be able to let go of your unpleasant thoughts, your unwanted thoughts, I think sometimes they're called in psychology, you got to let go of the wanted thoughts too. So that's what you got to do. And yeah, really, that's about it. It was a nice retreat. It was pleasant, and it was good, and I'm glad I went, and everything went well, and nobody was killed, and nobody was hurt. So it was a good time was had by all. I had an English teacher in high school who said, you cannot say a good time was had by all in your writing. And so now, ever since then, it's my revenge on Mrs. Feynman. I want to always say a good time was had by all. So a good time was had by all, was certainly had by me. A good time in the sense that it was good, not good, not bad, just kind of good, if that makes any sense. So there you go. That's what happens on a Zen retreat. If you have any questions about this, leave me a comment. I'm actually thinking I should start running my own Zen retreats, and I looked into, or a friend of mine looked into for me, using Mount Baldy Zen Center, and it turns out you need a minimum of 15 people. So I'm going to start saying this during my videos and asking people to write to me at bw@hardcorezen.info if they are seriously interested in attending a retreat with me at Mount Baldy in Mount Baldy, California, which is nearish, about 50 miles away from Los Angeles. So nearish to Los Angeles, but definitely not in Los Angeles. And if you are interested, like seriously interested, send me an email, and I'm going to see how many people write to me. And if I get at least 25 people writing to me, then I think maybe I might be able to get 15 people to actually show up. I prefer to get more like 50 people, because then maybe I'll get 15. People always say, oh yeah, I'm going to go, and then they don't go. So there you go. Anyway, if you want to contribute to me doing more stuff like you just watched, you can go to the URL that you're seeing on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main way of making a living, and I appreciate your support. But as always, you don't gotta support me if you don't want to support me. We will see you later. Have a good time all the time. Bye. How you doing, Ziggy? You didn't like going to the vet, did you? Vet stuck something up your bum, didn't she? Yeah, that wasn't nice. But you did good. You did good at the vet. Thank you for being a good boy. And we're going to put some cream on your belly to get rid of that rash. All right, have a good nap. Bye, Ziggy.